And I am Julie Simpson-Nichols.
And I'm Jen Simpson. She's the middle, I'm the youngest. I'm the tallest.
We go up in height.
Yeah.
So we have many, many memories of our dad. We can probably talk for hours about our memories. But I thought I would talk a little bit about our kind, quiet dad who really never yelled.
Well,
Almost never.
If you were driving the boat and you were trolling wrong, you got
You did get yelled. But he was always a quiet observer, never had to yell. He could kind of look at us and we could tell he was disappointed, but he was pretty quiet. He'd give us a look and then that would keep us in line. Of course, you know, we were all the perfect Cinderellas. And both our parents really taught us to speak our minds. As we grew up, Dad taught us safety measures regarding boating, fishing, and when we were old enough, driving a car. Kim was the first one with her license. She drove a Dodge Omni hatchback. And on one winter day, she was here, in the winter, she was working for Carolyn. She had an internship. And she was driving in and she hit black ice right near Forest Park. And she slid into a rock wall. And her car was toast. And I think Dad arrived and he didn't really care about the car. He was mostly concerned about her. Are you okay? The car, it can be fixed, it can be replaced, but you can't. We were very important to our dad. Fast forward 6 or 7 years, and I think I had my driver's license for maybe 3 months, and I went up Main Street, and I got stuck. And I was trying to back up, and I was driving the very cute navy blue Chevy Citation, otherwise known as the moving violation. And I backed up and there was, if I remember correctly, kind of a chain link fence there. Well, I scraped the entire side of the navy blue Chevy Citation. And then I freaked out and backed up and I backed into the staircase that is at the end there and totally munched the hatchback. So at that point I'm in tears and I carefully drove home and I got there and I'm sobbing in the car and then Dad came out and he didn't yell. Are you okay? We can fix it. It's okay. We can fix the car.
Okay. Then fast forward another 4 years and you have Jen driving, and I had really wanted a truck, so my dad found a blue Ranger pickup, and it was not an automatic, it was a stick shift, and he firmly believed that you should learn to drive a stick shift, and so what better way than to have your 16-year-old really want to drive and have to learn a stick shift. So I did learn to drive a stick shift. However, it was right about senior carnival time, and I was driving through Bear Valley to pick up friends and their cakes for the cakewalk for the senior carnival, and was turning the corner at Town Bar, so I shifted down because you always had to shift down rather than brake. Just shifted down, that was a rule. And I shifted down, was turning, and the stick shift broke off in my hand, at which point I completely panicked and forgot how to brake and ran over the fence and the stop sign on the corner. And this is before cell phones, so I had to go over to Shomar and call and say, I just crashed the truck and somehow I broke the stick shift off. Even though stick shift, in my mind, it must have happened because of me. At which point Dad was, what? Okay, are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay, Dad. all right, don't worry about it, we'll get it towed. And then I will tell you, a week later, we got a recall notice from Ford. And there was a tendency for the stick shift to break off and result in accidents. So technically, it wasn't really my fault. I just didn't know what else to do.
So, also, I missed one of my lovely accidents in the music moving violation, and that was the corner at Mountain Point. Hit black ice, spun out, and almost ended up in the ocean. At which point I walked to the Vincent house because once again that was before cell phones, and called home. So we mentioned all of these different cars because Dad wanted to make sure that we were well protected and we had a really strong car around us. So this was the beginning of the Simpson Volvo fleet, which started with two 142S. One was in 1968, which was as old as I am, and one was in 1970.
There's one still driving around town. It's red.
And it was ours.
And it's little, it was ours, but he sold it. And it still drives around town. It's still kicking.
And this,
Also a manual.
yes. And these cars had no power steering. So not only were they a stick shift, they had no power steering, and if you were a Simpson daughter, you knew how to parallel park. And I will tell you, parallel parking one of these was a bear, and you had to have really strong muscles. So then we graduated to the 240 series, and we had 4 of those. And then we moved on to 3 740 turbos, one of which still we have in the family. Rose, my daughter, actually drives their dad's last Volvo, which was a 1988 740 turbo, and that's Rose's car, Sven. And we also had an 850 and an S80.
And I will say that my 240, which was the little car that could go, I would move out of my apartment, I could pack everything in my Volvo. I even had a trailer hitch because I could tow a boat with it. People made fun of me, but it worked. But that car is the reason I am still standing here, because when I was in graduate school and in Portland, I was stopped at a stoplight between Lincoln Continental, and I had a Lincoln Continental, I don't know what the guy was doing, that tried to park underneath me and sandwiched my Volvo, and had I not been in that, I would not be here, because it just literally accordioned it together. And if you know Volvos, they're built like a brick. So it worked well, because Dad wanted us always to be safe, and even if something happened, we were safe. Okay, so the part for me that I continue thinking about is my dad's voice, because I hear it consistently. It's always in my head, no matter what I do.
I think it's in all of our heads.
You can tell it is, because he just talks, and it's his voice, and I'm going through whatever emotions with him reminding me. Probably one of the most prominent times is when Julie and I were probably in college, both of us thinking at that point.
I think so.
But we were going to go fishing with Dad, and he wanted us to be ready when work got out, and as two typical teens, we were lovely getting around, and we didn't get ready, and we didn't get the stuff ready, and we had to have all the stuff prepared. And so it took us a little bit longer to get things together, and we got everything on the boat, and we headed out. We were going toward Cape Nizon, because Dad's favorite place was the Glory Hole, and it was the only place to fish, and you had to go all the way across the straits, and you could vomit out the back, and it was fine as long as we got there. And typically, Julie and I would nap the entire way. Kim would too. You sleep the whole way there, because the minute you got on a boat, I don't know why, it just would put you out. And then we get there and be trolling. However, we had started out really good late.
Yeah, this particular time, instead of leaving early in the morning, we wanted to be there because the tide was going to be absolutely perfect first thing in the morning. So
Yeah.
we wanted to run over the night before.
So we got to Cape Nizon, and Dad used to call this Little Duku, which was a little bite that it's narrow, there's rocks, but it was dark. it was very dark. And so we got in there and it was dark and we couldn't quite tell where we were going. Dad was not happy. Oh, sorry. Dad was not happy. He was trying to get us where we needed to be, but you couldn't really see. And if you're out that far, it's really, really dark. So we ended up putting Julie on the bow with the spotlight. And then I was looking for anything, and at the point that we were looking for the opening and the spotlight, we realized we were about to run aground. And because there's some seal rocks near there, and then we had to back out. And I think that was probably the first time I heard my dad swear.
He said many words.
Many words, and I had never heard those before. But it was clearly unsafe, and safety was of paramount importance for Dad. So boating safety was super important before cell phones. Julie and I would hitch my skiff up to my Volvo and go launch it at Knutson Cove and head up to the cabin. Because we did things our own way. We don't have a lot of upper body strength, so I'm really good at backing up. I could launch it, but we'd have to bounce it off the trailer or bounce it back on. But we kind of got late coming back, only to find Dad pacing the dock because we were overdue. And safety was really important because he didn't want anything to happen to us because his family was the most important thing. And this has always continued no matter what. Even when Brett and I would go out on the boat and we'd take our kids out, he would go sit in the car at Mountain Point until he saw us come past. And we always had to tell him we were going, so, and or he'd sit and see if we were going behind the island. He was always looking to make sure we were coming back. And coming back safely.
And that, we keep talking about Dad's voice. Yesterday, a group of the grandkids went out to the cabin, and they had to notify us when they were on their way back in. And granted, now we have cell phones, and Kim was tracking them as well on Find My Phone. But then we knew that they were on the way back in.
And they have a GPS satellite.
Yes, yeah. Probably an air tag or two. I mean,
Much easier now.
so I want to talk a little bit more about Dad's voice. It's just things that occur to me, and they come out of my mouth, and so subsequently come out of my kid's mouth now. Driving, how to turn into a slide. If you're in the snow and you're out of control, get on the shoulder to straighten out. Keep a steady speed. Pump your brakes, which is really annoying now that they have automatic pumping because it doesn't do it the way I know I can do it better. Driving a stick shift, it's important to know how, and I would say probably a lot of people of our generation don't know how to drive a stick shift. And so we can quite literally drive anything. I learned on a dark brown work truck with a giant hole in the seat that we had to stuff things in to make it tall enough so I could see. But I could quite literally drive anything with a stick shift now. Dad's voice shows up a lot, understandably, when we're fishing. Keep the rod tip up. Don't back away. You better bleed them out through the scupper. Don't get a mess on my boat. The proper troll speed. The exact drag at the glory hole, Valner, Indian Point, to the point that if we're there, I'd rather be driving because I know exactly where we need to scrape the kelp to pull out that king. Had to take shortcuts for fun, like through between Ham and Annette Island, and then my dad, he loved to run through Gort Miller Cutoff, which if you've ever been there, there's barely enough room to fit the boat through. That he would just through, no problem, because taking risky shortcuts were fun. There's never anything that he thought we couldn't do, and he taught us so much that going out into the world, I'd often get the comment, and I know you guys would get it too, is there anything you guys don't know how to do? You sound like you're bragging, but it was just, for my dad, was how to be capable and how to take care of yourself. When I spent about 7 years coaching basketball. Out of my sister was the only one who played basketball. Basketball was my dad's love. And I will tell you, I have sent generation after generation of kids on that are now repeating my dad's voice. You know, how to have proper follow through, how to follow the ball, how to get in position, how to drop your foot at the baseline, keep your head up, and all of those things go through my brain and come out my mouth when I coach. And so all of those kids are repeating the same items. Probably one of the most interesting was when I learned how to dive. I was probably about 20 years old, which my dad was about 58, 59. And I loved diving. I had gotten certified to dive, and I loved diving, and I asked everybody, please don't get me anything for Christmas, just give me money because I want to buy my dive setup. And I was saving and saving and saving, and Dad was known more for acts of service and not for like material objects, and he knew that that's what I had my heart set on. So, and I knew it was really expensive, and so I was saving and saving and saving. And I got a card for Christmas that says, this is good for an entire dive setup. And that was a big deal, because I didn't even feel like I could accept that. It was too much, but he knew I loved it. And then I couldn't find dive buddies. I have dive buddies now, but at the time I couldn't, so my dad was so patient. We'd go out, and he would tie a rope on me, and he'd row on the top while he'd follow my bubbles while I was diving, but he knew I was safe because he had a line on me, and I would pop up and down and tell him, I just saw an octopus, and whatever else I happened to see, and it was so much fun, and I'd have such a good time. He was so patient and thoughtful when we leave my mom on the boat because she didn't really need to know what we were doing this kind of thing. So we were out, had fished at the Glory Hole, I had my dive gear, and I wanted to go through Burt Miller Cutoff because it was really kelpy and there's a lot of cool stuff in there. And so I had dove through and I found scallops and abalone and you name it. It was amazing, and I was up and down and up and down and up and down and tilling down and down. I just remember holding on to the edge and I was talking to him. And we had been gone through Burt Miller Cutoff, and on the other side, and probably 10 feet away about that time, an entire pod of orcas come through and blow. And I just looked up at him, and I had my weight belt, my dry suit, I had a steel tank, which is a little bit heavier. I was wet, and at the time, I probably weighed 140 pounds. I don't know, like 300 pounds with all my stuff on. And I looked up at him like this, and he looked and go, oh, hell no. And grabbed me by the scruff of my neck and hauled me in. And my dad was nearly 60, and I was like, he is the strongest man on earth. Because he hauled me out of there, and we rode back through, and he said, don't tell your mom. So he always fulfilled what he knew you had your heart set on. When I graduated from college, I got a skiff. Because you know what that guarantees? It guarantees that I'm going to come home. And we still have that skiff. Our girls use it now, and I no longer tow it with a Volvo, but I can still launch it. And if you knew my dad, he had a phrase, and when he'd get a little frustrated, he was a little bit opinionated, shocking. We might have inherited that from our parents. He would say, what you people don't understand. And you knew that you were going to have a little lecture after that. And so I'd say what you people don't understand is that my daddy was the most skilled and the smartest and the strongest and the most loving. And I sincerely and totally miss him. And it's particularly hard this time of year for me because we are painting the boat, we're getting it ready, and I keep on forgetting and saying, I need to ask Dad about this. And I forget he's not here so I can ask him. But his memory goes on because he's just talking all the time. He's always in my head. He's in all our heads. And no matter what, because when I'm working on the boat, I know exactly what I'm doing and what not to do. And he's missed. And I know time here, he was fishing.
He was.
It was fishing at the very end. And we were trolling at the glory hole, and I couldn't think of a better place to go at the very end. And we were all there, and he knew it.
We were all doing our parts, our jobs on the boat.
And not running into rocks.
No.
That's a big no-no.
And we were using charts.
We were using the charts. And it wasn't too late.
It was not. So next up, we have some music for you.